We rolling. Yes. Welcome back to the Bees Like That podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chris. What is today? It is the 12th day of Black History Month. Where we at? So, 12th day of Black History Month. And I know that I've shared that I began prep a couple of weeks ago for my 2024 competitive season. I had done that. That is true. That's true. There's a difference between that and what I'm about to tell you. So the difference between that and what I'm about to tell you is in that iteration or version of prep, I had an idea that I would go at this season alone, right? I was going to self-coach. A combination of things happened. So, a bit of anxiety, some reality, and a healthy dose of humility kicked in and landed on my shoulders at once. What I quickly realized is I need that connection to accountability. I need that connection to experience. Because listen, so I've been around a while. I've been working out for a while. Been into bodybuilding and bodybuilding style training, hypertrophy training, whatever you want to call it, for a while, a number of years. Last year was my first competitive season, including only one show, one competition. This year will include 2 competitions. The next year, maybe 3. I don't know. I don't want to get crazy with it because this isn't something that I do for a profession. This is something that I do professionally. So as a lifestyle, it takes up a tremendous amount of time. So I think that 2 shows, we're going to see how that feels. And then put a bit more time in between competitions next year. Anyway, so I broke down, went ahead and hired myself a coach. This is a person and this is a relationship that I feel really good about. I'm big on energy. Y'all know that about me. I'm big on energy. I'm fancy myself a bit of a hippie, but I come by that naturally because where I live in the Pacific Northwest, it's hippified as hell. So, and then maybe not as authentically as it once was. Like when I was growing up, it was some real hippies that lived in my city. Now they're all old and aging out, and the newer version are more, I think, what you would classify as hipsters and not actual hippies. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Point is, I'm big on energy. I had a couple conversations, including one conversation on the phone. I liked the questions that they asked. Kept it simple. Didn't try to sell me on anything, which I really appreciate. Because I know what I'm interested in, right? So you know that feeling when you know what you're interested in, you know what you're in the market for. You go, shopping for that, whatever it might be. And you end up with people just trying to sell you a bunch of different stuff. And it doesn't ever feel good because it's not what you asked them for. I didn't get that with this experience, and that was nice. This is someone, like I said, I get a good, energetic feeling from this person and this relationship. So we're going to see how it goes. So far, so good. I'm in my second day of nutrition programming and training. Well, first day of training, second day of nutrition programming. So we'll see how it goes. The nutrition programming is so close to what I'd already been doing with a few tweaks that I understand that are necessary just to clean up, shore things up and clean it up a little bit. So I felt pretty good actually, like that I was pretty close. They made some increases and some decreases in certain places that make sense. But then again, that points to that experience, right? Like them evaluating where I'm at currently, my current physique, and where I would like to go. Excuse me. How much time we have to get there, etc. So I was close, not as close as I needed to be. They got me there. This is going to be a good season. And what's nice about it is I won't be dieting for 10 months, 9-10 months as I was last year. As I shared with y'all, I won't rehash the entire story, but the plan was not to do a show last year. It was just kind of something that happened. I think that my look, I hate to use the word suffered for it, right? But I think I could have been better had I not been dieting for such a long time. I think that doing a show after dieting for that amount of time was probably not the best idea. Although we did okay. We got 5th place, so I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. And great results, because that was a great outcome. It's a good outcome. I've had a lot on my mind with regard to, and this is something that has consistently been a thing that I think about, right? And it's something that's made a lot of sense to me. And I shared a video on social media of Tupac alluding to kind of like the same thing, like as a person who is currently shaping Black history, right? Like, I share the same sentiment as him. Is like, I want to push the boundaries of what I'm prescribed to be allowed to do, right? Like, maybe not in the exact same ways, feeling as constrained as he did, because I'm, of course, not a movie star or a musician or a rapper or anything like that. But still, like, feeling constrained in other ways, like, you can do this, but only at this level, right? Because of your history and your lived experience is good, but only to this point, because beyond this point, we need someone who's not had those kinds of experiences that those who've not had them present as a bit more professional. Like, these kinds of boundaries and constraints are kind of like more what I'm explaining that I feel like I encounter or have encountered. And I'm like, and I'm cool with like pushing those boundaries. Like, no, 5 years ago, like, they told me that I couldn't do X, Y, or Z, so now I'm doing X, Y, or Z. And, I've literally had people like, well, yeah, it's good to have a goal, but maybe something more realistic. I'm like, how is it not realistic if I can observe someone living that right now? Like, that's a reality to me. Because, listen, we've only got this one opportunity, and who actually knows, beyond the strongest commitments to faith that we can summon up, who actually knows what life, or if life, how it, exists after this? Are we going to remember any of these experiences? Like, what form are we going to take? Are we going to be energy? Are we going to be matter? Are we going to be both? Where do we land on that? I don't know. But the point is, leaving for others to define what boundaries, where we live, what containers we're placed in, how long, and for what reasons, seems a little foolish to me. It seems like there are at least in me, stronger urgings to be more, see more, do more, exist in different ways. And I hope I'm not losing y'all, because these are like literally the things I think about. And then to tie that into an overall point, and that has to do with Black history, these new boundaries, pushing these things and existing in new ways, in new spaces, kind of the same thing as what, the people that we look up to, who we herald as like, the original champions for change, when they may have only done something once, said one profound thing that was like captured in a moment in time. I mean, although with tremendous and immense historical value, given the time and the context and, all the stuff that was going on, outside of this one thing, even though highly impactful as it may or may not have been, why are we now in this day and age, like, I understand to record and to remember history, right? Because these things are important, and especially accurately. But we shouldn't feel beholden to live inside of that container of performance and behavior, right? We can take examples from that, and then we can create and develop and move past even those things and be impactful in our own ways and in our own right, and establish new and previously unbelieved to be achievable, or believed not to be achievable, boundaries, right? And somehow we can normalize the remarkable in that way. Why is this wild? Why is this a wild notion? I don't know. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that occurs to me. I don't know that it does to anybody else. It has to, on some level. But I also think, like, to a degree, we're afraid, as people who view themselves as standing on the shoulders of giants, is like one of the phrases that's tossed around pretty regularly. That if we were to, I don't know, I guess people don't want to disrespect in a way, or devalue, but I don't think that to add to any initiative or to do more or do something better, right? I don't think that, and these pioneers and people, I don't think they would be upset. I mean, I would hope not. I think, like, no, we're going to set a bar, no one can raise it, and like, that's not, the definition of progress. So I think therein, like, I kind of explained something to myself, and at the same time, like, just unpacking this in real time, there's a standard set, right? An expectation, right? So celebrate, remember, maybe even make a little progress, but don't push it much past this. We'd like you to stay within these parameters here. This is where we feel you're best suited. Well, I don't know that it's my job to agree with what you feel I'm best suited and where you feel I should be. I know these are the same thoughts that the freedom fighters, if you will, of yesteryear had before too. And they were talking about people in their 20s, early 30s. Granted, it took me a bit more time to pull my head out of my butt, and get rolling with some stuff. But I mean, now it was as Jay-Z says, what's the point of sitting on old content? Like, we don't live in the same times. Like, so many, this is where I think I diverge with some of my brothers and sisters with regard to Black progress. Because I think that in a lot of ways we made some tremendous progress. I don't see things being the same as they were in the 60s. I don't. I mean, you still see some of the stuff happening, right? But you have to admit that there are differences. It's not the same, and it's not the same everywhere. That is another thing that people don't get. So it's like, if you work in a certain field, or if you have a certain experience, you know, you're surrounded by a certain thing for long enough, you see enough of a thing, you think that that thing is typical, and that experience is typical for everyone. Even if you understand consciously that that's not realistic and that not everyone sees as much or experiences as much of said thing as you do or have, there are bits of you who believe this is normal, right? And so, like, you still, in conversation, sometimes might be surprised if someone is surprised that you're so cavalier in conversation about whatever the experience might be, because this is new to them, but it's not to you. Example, drugs and being around addiction and stuff like that my whole life. This is stuff that is not new to me. For a large percentage of the population who don't happen to fit the clinical definition, or even, you know, the layman's definition for addiction, this stuff is not typical. It's not normal. So they aren't used to, and probably have never seen anybody withdraw from drugs or alcohol before. Right? So that's what I mean. So, the struggle for the black person in one part of the country is not going to look the same as a struggle or experience as a black person in another part of the country. It's just not the case. It is not how it goes. This is not how it goes. So it can't be that, I mean, this is just realism, right? This is just reality. It can't be that we all have the same universal experience across the board. That ain't true either. This is ridiculous. That's a ridiculous notion to even posit. But that kind of stuff happens. It does. And I disagree with a lot of it. Like, I openly disagree with it. And, you know, it hasn't made me a lot of friends. But case in point, I didn't have the same experience as a person who grew up in North Philadelphia or West Philadelphia or Detroit or South Central Los Angeles or Miami or Washington, D.C. or, you know, somewhere in New York. This is the same way as they didn't have the same experience as me growing up where I did. It's completely different worlds. Like, someone from some of these places will not have experienced white people the way that I have, or dominant culture the way that I have. They just will not have had that experience. I think I have a friend from Philadelphia. This is something that they shared with me. They said that they're like, aside from the random cop, I never saw white people. I didn't interact with white people unless they smoke crack. I didn't interact with white people. You know, I didn't experience racism the way that you did. He was, you know, referring to me. I didn't experience racism the way that you did because there weren't white people around me to be racist. Not in my daily life. And my ability to be so cavalier and calm around, you know, tense situations with white people is odd to him. It's an experience he's not accustomed to. That I can just, you know, I talk to him in all kind of way. I talk to him because I know how the things go. He didn't, so he had a different experience. Is the point. So our approaches to oppression, racism, the maintenance of the status quo, while generally the same, they're going to differ based on context, population size, relative issue. So, like, what is the big issue in your area compared to mine? Like, you know, the larger community issues in Washington, D.C. are going to be substantially different than the larger community issues here. I mean, we're going to share some of the same ones. Like, you know, fentanyl is a big problem everywhere. Homelessness is a big problem, becoming a bigger problem in a lot of places. So we'll share that in common, but I can't remember the last time police in my city shot and killed anybody. I can't. I don't remember the last time police in my city shot and killed anyone. Or that there was an officer-involved shooting. Well, that's not true. I do remember the last time there was an officer-involved shooting. A couple of officers were shot. And that I remember. And I don't remember the last time a citizen in my city was shot. Now, not that there aren't and haven't been other forms of brutality or harassment, or that everyone and on the police force here is like brutally honest and morally upright, like, because that's not realistic either. You know, you got people from all walks of life occupying spaces in all kinds of professions, so you're inevitably going to have at least one or two bad actors. So, not to get off into that, but just to make the point again. So, and to circle back, so what do we do about any of it? Any issues, any racism, any structural issues, any oppression, you know, discrimination. God, man, that was tough. So I've touched on this before. We augment the systems, meaning it's really gonna be tough to get in. And I applaud people who fight this fight. I think it's a bit of a fool's errand, like, to completely abolish a thing, to completely turn. Not that it's impossible, because I mean, you see people, with certain initiatives that they're successful sometimes at certain things, but I think that where these systems get a big portion of their power is how the people they're meant to be oppressive to and who are intentionally meant to be marginalized, how they respond to these systems and how they empower themselves to have, and others to have, different experiences and responses to these systems. I think that's how we augment the systems, and I think that's how we change that level of power dynamic, right? If more and more people are having successful outcomes at a thing where historically that was not the case. And historically, it was an issue, right? When people start having successful outcomes more and more in these areas, what do you think the more likely thing is to happen? Do you think that these systems and the agents running them are going to double down? It's possible. And try to fold more and new victims in? It's possible. Or do you think that perhaps they may employ some adaptability, changeability, or even abandon ship on that tactic altogether and focus their energies on other things? Or switch course, because this is popular now, given the power of optics and how you can leverage proximity to different things. switch sides, publicly denounce your previous tactics and lifestyle and beliefs and say you've turned over a new leaf. Now I'm for the blacks. Love the afros. Black fists all around. Right. And that kind of stuff does happen, but what you'll see and what I've often seen is once that is a shelf life. So that kind of co-opting of platforms and stuff doesn't last very long, which is another problem because it's kind of like that. You stick your hand out. Oh, thought you had a friend, boy. It's exactly how that is. Or they may give you a little dap and they kick it for a minute, but only until they're done getting what they want out of the situation. Then it's peace out, which is unfortunate, but then it's still up to the good actors like you and I, right? So this is what I mean. Push the boundaries. Make people uncomfortable. You yourself should be uncomfortable. Lean into these things that don't necessarily create a bunch of warm fuzzies for you. Because at least for me, I know that when I lay my head on the pillow at night, even if I, just by human nature have some anxiety about a thing that I might said, I will examine it over and over and over and over again and do my best to try to find an area where I may need to make even a personal correction and do it, right? Because this is how we refine our approach. This is how we become less likely to make mistakes in how we can, at the same time, reduce the severity of the mistakes that we will inevitably make. Because these mistakes, like it or not, are an avenue of approach. For the ops. It's an avenue of approach. But we protect ourselves by what I always say. Living an honorable, dependable, grateful, honest, forthright, and upstanding life. Let them come for you if they want. It's nothing. It bees like that sometimes. You really, really do. I'm so excited. So I'm just put it like this. I got a bunch of stuff done that makes this season real. Like it's real now. Like it's real. I'm in prep. I'm ready to go. And I'm stoked because in the next, over the next, 6, 7, about 8, they're like, it's going to really start getting interesting about 8 weeks. Like things start really kicking into high gear. I wonder where we're going to land body fat percentage wise. Because not dieting for as long, like having we got a good prep, like the duration is, I think, perfect. And I'm not gonna sacrifice much, if any, size at all. Right? So I'm gonna retain a lot of quality muscle that I didn't have last year. So just that, so here's the thing. The muscle that I wasted during prep last year, I'll have this year. Plus the new muscle that I put on. Right? So who knows where I'm gonna land? I could land 185, 190. You don't know. You're not the boss of me. It's going to be fun, though. It's going to be a good time. Some changes that I'll make. So last year, I let anxiety get the best of me more than a few times, and you can already guess where, like, how that manifested. That manifested with indulgence in food. So this time I've got some strategies to try and mitigate that. One is I'm more psychologically prepared for this season. Last year, dude, I'm telling you, like, the stuff that goes through your brain when you're like, I mean, at least for me, when I was like 5 weeks out, 4 or 3, oh man, the stuff that goes through your brain is just crazy, because your brain is, the last thing it wants to do is to continue getting lean and then dehydrate when you. So this is the great part about that part of the process is, like, getting dry and then carving up. Like, at least you're fed. Like, that part of it is so much of a relief. So much of a relief because you've gone through so much. So carving up, like, that week before the show, it really helps, man. It's like, you're like, oh my God, I forgot how good this plain white rice with absolutely nothing on it tasted. But anyway, no, man, it's going to be good. Everything is good. We're doing a lot of things different this year. So, like, my support team's not going to be as impacted, as they were last year, because I didn't know what to expect, so I was a little irritable, a little crotchety. This year's going to be different, right? I'm not going to be over-dieted. That amount of diet fatigue is not going to be so high, which is going to be a nice change. And we're prepared with all the, the amenities and shit like that, this far out. So everything, I don't have any, like, admin stuff to worry about. Like, everything's taken care of. Now, all I got to do is train, diet, and do my best not to get hurt. Anyway, I'm going to stop running my mouth. If y'all didn't do it on the way in, think about doing it on the way out. Hit that like, subscribe, post notification bell so you can stay up to date. Everything we talk about here on the Beats Like That podcast. Peace, y'all.